Hi, I'm Joe Miller, yoga teacher for YogaRenew. Welcome to Yoga for a Strong and Flexible Spine. In this class, we'll focus on developing a little bit more flexibility for the spine, and we're going to start off with a supported back bending pose using two blocks. So you'll set yourself up with one block. I like to have this block on the lowest position, and then this block is going to go kind of in your upper back. I'll turn for a moment so you can see my back. So the position of the block will be here with the upper end of the block basically around the lower tips of the shoulder blades. So around in this position. So we'll set this up here. And then the other block will be kind of behind your head. And you'll lie down on your back, again with the block in your upper back. You might have to adjust a little bit to find the right position. And then you'll place the other block behind your head. And you can choose kind of where you want the block to be in terms of being able to support your head. So if it's more comfortable for you with the block in this higher orientation, that's perfectly fine. If you want to have the block a little bit lower, that's fine as well. It's a little bit bigger back bend. So you could decide kind of whatever is a comfortable position for you. And just take a few moments to kind of settle into this position. You can have your knees bent with your feet flat on the floor. And it might take a few moments for your body to feel like it can just begin to kind of adapt to this sensation of the block in the back. I always find this to be kind of a pretty intense sensation for myself. This area of the spine, the thoracic spine, is an area that for many of us, myself included, tends to be a little bit restricted in movement. So one of the advantages of a supported back bend like this is it really helps you to kind of very directly target that particular area of the spine. So once you kind of settle into this, you can bring your hands behind your head so you give yourself a little support for your head. And we'll do a little bit of dynamic movement here. So as you exhale, you can curl your head up so you're kind of rounding your spine, looking down between your legs. Take an inhale and see if you can breathe into your back. So breathing into the back of the rib cage, as if you could kind of expand the back ribs into the block. And then as you exhale, just slowly allow your spine to mold itself to that contact of the block as you lower the head down, letting the elbows widen. We'll do that twice more. So again, exhale, you'll curl up. Inhale, breathe into the back. See if you can spread the back ribs into the block. As you exhale, let the spine curl itself over the block, lowering your head down. And one more time like that. Exhale, and you'll curl up. Take an inhale, and breathing into the back. This might be something maybe that you're not so familiar with doing. And then as you exhale, just allow the spine to mold itself to the shape of the block. And then you can pause here. Now we'll move the spine from the other end, but continue with this idea of a little bit of dynamic movement. So as you inhale, you can lift your hips. And you can just take a moment here to elongate your tailbone downward away from the upper back. So you create a little length in your lower back. Again, take an inhale and see if you can breathe into this area of the upper back. This is an area where I think oftentimes when we focus on the breath, we often put our attention here in the front, but you have a lot of lung space in your back, so breathe into that space. And then as you exhale, you'll lower the hips down, and again, let the spine mold itself to that contact with the block. Take an inhale here. And then as you exhale, lift the hips, lengthening the tailbone down for a moment. Inhale, breathe into the contact of the back of the block. And as you exhale, lower the hips, just letting the spine bend over the block. One more time like that. With the next exhale, curl up. Inhale, breathe into the back ribs, expand into the block. And then as you exhale, let the spine just drape itself over the block. And then we'll take a couple of breaths here. You can continue to support your head with your hands, or if you feel comfortable with it, you can begin to bring the arms alongside the ears, and then bend the elbows to clasp elbows. So just letting the weight of the arms now help to create a little bit more sensation of kind of opening through the muscles of the chest. Take a couple of breaths here, and as much as possible, see if you can just allow the spine to kind of relax into that contact. And then re-extend the arms and just switch. If you can figure out how to put the other forearm on top, do that. Again, pausing here for a few breaths. All right, and now to come out of this, you'll interlace your fingers behind your head. Again, exhale and curl your head up. So you're really kind of engaging the muscles now in the front of the body to kind of very actively lengthen through the muscles of the spine. So those would be your abdominal muscles. And then you can bring your hands to the floor. And then from there, you'll just slowly press yourself up to a seated position and take the blocks, can move them out of the way. And then we'll come around onto all fours. Separate your knees about the width of your mat. You can bring the big toes toward each other, and then just begin to drop your hips back toward your heels, settling into child's pose for a couple of breaths. So let there be some space between the thighs, so you have a little room for your upper back to settle between the thighs. So in this way, you're kind of not really sort of shocking your spine by moving into a big forward bend through the spine, but still maintaining a kind of more or less neutral position for the spine. Take a few breaths here. See if you can just invite your sitting bones to relax toward your heels. It really doesn't matter if your hips are on your heels or not. Relax your forehead toward the floor. And then you'll just walk the hands back in and bring yourself up to sit. If you're comfortable sitting on your shins, you can do that, bringing the thighs more or less parallel. If this is not a comfortable position for you to be in, you can always roll up a blanket, put it between your calves and thighs, so you raise yourself up a little bit higher so you don't have quite so much of a bend in your knees. And then we'll kind of do what we did kind of in the previous class of joining the palms together over the heart. You can interlace the fingers, invert your palms, and press your palms upwards towards the ceiling. Just take a couple of breaths here to find some length between your sitting bones and your ears, and lengthening from there all the way up into the knuckles of your fingers. And then as you exhale, a little cat spine, letting your spine round as you press the palms forward. You can spread the shoulder blades wide. And then inhale, let the spine arch a little bit as you press the palms up. Exhale, rounding the spine. Inhale and pressing up. One more time with this, exhaling and rounding the spine, and then inhaling and pressing up. And then release your hands down. You can start to walk your hands forward. So you're again folding into child's pose. You can separate the knees again a few inches. They don't need to be quite as wide as they were before, but allow yourself a little space to settle down between the thighs. And then walk your hands to your right. So you're bringing your chest out over your right thigh. Take a couple of breaths here. So a little side bend towards your right. You might notice some sensation of lengthening or opening in your left waist or your left ribs or under your left armpit. And if you want even a little more sensation, you can crawl your left hand a little further to the right, maybe even stacking the left hand on top of the right. And then we're going to turn this into a twist. So you'll flip your left palm toward the ceiling and then rest your left ear on your left biceps muscle. Bend your right elbow and put your right hand on the floor to the right. It's sort of like you're doing a push-up with your right hand. Press into your right hand and use that to turn the chest toward the right, rolling the right shoulder back. as you bring the left side of the chest under the right. And then you can walk the right hand forward, come back to the center for a moment, and then walk your hands over towards your left, bringing your chest out over your left knee. Take a few breaths to, again, just breathe into that sensation of length through the right side. You can try to reach your right sitting bone back toward your right heel as you reach out through the right fingers. And then turning this into a twist. So you flip the right palm toward the ceiling, rest your right ear on your right biceps, bend your left elbow, and then, like you're doing a little push-up with the left hand, press the left hand into the floor to help you to turn your chest towards your left. And then you can walk both hands forward, walk them back to the center, and then as you inhale, you can bring yourself upright, so you're sitting on your shins, and then just reach your left hand back behind you. Press into your hips, lift your hips, bring your right arm alongside your right ear. You can look down towards your left hand, and then lower your hips back down onto your heels. Bring your right hand behind you, leaning into the right hand, lift the hips, and you can look down towards the right hand, and then lowering the hips back down. And then we'll walk the hands forward, coming out onto all fours. From here, you can tuck your toes and just press back into downward facing dog. You can start with the knees bent, finding a little bit more length through your spine. It might make it a bit easier to find that length through your spine with your knees bent. So you're lengthening your sitting bones up, letting the weight of the head release toward the ground, and pressing firmly through your fingerprints into the floor to help to create some feeling of a upward lift through your hips. Start to extend your right leg, and then bend your right knee, and then extend your left leg, just like we did in that previous class where we're warming up the spine. And then you just let this move you into a series of pedaling the feet in place. And then start to make this movement even a little bit bigger. So you can roll over onto the toenails of your right foot, letting your right knee come a little closer to the floor. And then lengthen back to down dog, and then rolling over the toes of the left foot, lowering the knee down a couple of times like this. So you're really just getting some movement through your feet. And you feel how you're kind of moving a little forward towards plank and then back towards down dog. And then the next time that you lower your right knee down, just pause there. Turn your left heel to the floor. You can pivot your right foot back behind you a little bit to make your balance a little bit easier. Press into your right hand. Reach your left arm up toward the ceiling. And then cradle the back of your head with your left hand. We did this previously also in the last class, but in a little different position. As you inhale, you can turn to look up toward the ceiling, and then exhale and fold your left elbow towards your right wrist. Inhale, open the elbow up toward the ceiling, and exhale, folding down. One more time like this. Again, just getting a little movement in the upper back between the shoulder blades. And now extend your left arm long alongside your left ear. Maybe you can even let the left waist lift a little bit more. And then as you exhale, you'll bring the left hand down, lower the knees down, and drop your hips back towards child's pose. And then again, inhale and bring yourself upright. Right fingertips to the floor behind you. Pressing into the hips, you can lift the hips and bring the left arm alongside the left ear, looking down towards the right hand, and then exhale, we'll sit down, and then same thing now to the left. And then lowering down, and then we'll slide the hands forward and move back once again to downward facing dog. Back to this kind of pedaling the feet in place, treading your feet. And again, you can let the movement become a little bit bigger, so you start to roll over the toes of one foot and then the toes of the other foot. And then the next time that you roll over the toes of your left foot, lower your left knee to the floor. turn the right heel down so the toes of the right foot are pointed towards the right side of the mat. Pivot your left foot back behind you a little to help with your balance, and then bring the right arm up toward the ceiling. Cradle the back of your head. As you inhale, you can turn to look up, and exhale and fold your elbow down. Inhale and opening up toward the ceiling, and exhale and fold the elbow down. And one more time like that. Inhale, and as you exhale, you can release the right hand down, and then from here, we'll just push back into downward facing dog. And then inhale and raise your right leg up in the air. And as you exhale, you'll step your right foot forward, more or less between your hands. Lower your left knee to the floor. If it's uncomfortable for your left knee to be on the floor, you can always put a blanket underneath the knee, make it a little more comfortable for yourself. And you might also find that it might be helpful to have your hands on your blocks so that as you come forward, you can find a little bit more lift through your chest. So can you lift your chest off your right knee? Notice I'm keeping the left toes tucked because then this will allow you to then lengthen through both legs with your next exhale. And you might not find that you can lengthen the right leg fully. It doesn't matter. Just if it's a little bit bent, that's fine. You're just kind of finding out how easily it can lengthen or not. And then bend both knees, lower the left knee down, let your chest lift off your right thigh. You can let your gaze lift a little if that's comfortable for you, but without straining your neck. So again, the idea is the whole spine is participating in this movement of spinal extension. And then as you exhale and you pull your hips back, you can let the weight of the head release so that the spine kind of lengthens along its backside. And then inhale, again, lower the left knee down, letting the chest lift. And one more time like that, lengthen the right leg. And now inhale, lower the left knee down. You can point the left toes if you'd like, and then sweep your arms up alongside your ears. Bend your elbows, cradle the back of your head, and as you inhale, let the chest lift as the hips come forward, and then as you exhale, you can pull the hips back a little bit so you bring your pelvis on top of your left knee. Let your back round, a little cat spine. Inhale and come forward, letting the chest lift. The elbows can spread wide. And then exhale, drawing back, a little cat spine. Hopefully these movements are starting to feel familiar to you. We've already done these in a couple of classes. And then the next time you come forward, just reach the left arm up toward the ceiling, rest the right elbow on the right thigh, and take a side bend towards your right. You can continue to rest the right forearm on the right thigh, or if you'd like, you could take your right hand to your block. And then from there, we'll bring the left hand down, set the blocks off to the side for a moment, and push back to downward facing dog. Inhale and move forward out to plank pose. And as you exhale, you can lower the knees to the floor and just lower your chest down to the floor. Curl up into a small cobra. And then as you exhale, you can push back towards child's pose and then lengthen the legs into downward facing dog. And then we'll inhale and raise the left leg up in the air. And as you exhale, just step your left foot forward. Lower your right knee down. Again, you might find that the blocks will be helpful for you to help you to get a little bit of lift of your chest. And you can decide for yourself how low you want the blocks to be. So the highest position will make it a little bit easier for you to lift the chest, and of course also will make it a little bit easier for you to keep your hands in contact with something as you lengthen the left leg and fold. And then we'll do this a couple more times. And if you feel like you can easily reach toward the ground, you can try the blocks in a little bit lower setting. Again, it doesn't matter whether the left leg lengthens. The idea is just to kind of find out where that point of resistance is. And then what do you do when you meet with that resistance? Right? Do you want to try to push through it, or can you simply acknowledge that that's where the place is where your leg is resisting the movement without trying to push further? And And then we'll set the blocks off to the side. And again, pressing back to downward facing dog. Again, inhale and come forward out into plank. And as you exhale, you can lower the knees down, bring the chest to the floor, and just curling up, a small cobra. And exhale, and pushing back into child's pose. We'll take a couple of breaths here in child's pose. And then you can slowly bring yourself up to sit and swing your legs around so that you have your legs extended out in front of you. And bend your right knee and open your right leg out to the right. So you're setting up for Janu Shirshasana. If you find that it's challenging for you to be able to sit upright in this position, you can take a folded blanket, slide it underneath your pelvis. You could even sit up on your blocks, like so. Although what I would suggest if you're doing that then is that you also put a little bit of support underneath your left thigh so that you're not letting the back of the left knee kind of overstretch to the point where it feels a little bit uncomfortable. But for me, I don't feel like I really need the blocks, so I'm going to sit on the floor. And then you'll just take a moment here to turn the chest to face in the direction of the left leg, and you can start to walk your hands forward and just folding out over the left leg. And wherever you get to is fine. If you can reach your foot, that's fine. If not, it doesn't really matter. Once you get into this position, see if you can kind of grip the floor lightly with your fingers and pull a little bit back with your fingers to lengthen your chest forward. So your belly button lengthens away from the pubic bone, your sternum lifts, finding some length through the front so you're not compromising your breath. And then as you exhale, you'll fold forward. And we'll just take a couple of breaths here. And then walk your hands back in. And then slide your right knee a little bit farther back. So you're kind of opening the pelvis a little bit more towards the right side of your mat. And then from there, you can bring your left arm to the inside of your left leg. So maybe your forearm comes to the floor, or just the hand. And then you can start to press the left arm against the inside of the left leg to turn the chest open towards the right. Bring the right arm up. You can cradle the back of the head, as we've done before, and then start to slide the left arm down, if you can comfortably do that, to take a side bend out over the left leg. You can continue to support your head with your right hand, if that's comfortable for you. Or, if you'd like, you can extend the right arm and just letting the weight of the right arm create a little bit more length and space through the right side of your waist and between the ribs on the right side. Send some breath into that area. And then inhale and come back up to vertical. Place your right hand toward the back of your mat. This is kind of similar to that position you were in earlier, where you had one knee down. See if you can then press into your right knee, press into your right hand, lift your hips, and then lengthen your left arm alongside your left ear. So finding some length through your left side. And then lower your pelvis down, and we'll just change sides. So you'll extend your right leg long, bend your left knee out to your left, turn your chest so that you're facing out over your right leg, and then you just start to walk the hands forward. Take a few breaths here. You can find a little more length with that action of kind of pulling the floor towards you with the fingertips to kind of create a little more space through your belly, through your chest, a little more breath, a little more room for you to breathe into. And then as you exhale, just settling the weight of the body out over the right leg. Your right knee might need to be a little bit bent. That's fine. It's not important whether the leg straightens, not important how deeply you fold over the leg, but just finding, again, kind of where's that point where you run into resistance so that then you start to learn kind of how do you meet with resistance. And then bring yourself upright. From there, we'll slide the left knee back just a bit further. Turn your chest so you're facing towards your left. You can bring the right arm along the inside of the right leg. Pressing the right arm against the right leg will help you to roll the left side of the chest back. Cradle your head with your left hand, and then as you exhale, you'll side bend out over the right leg. And you can continue to support your head. The heads are kind of heavy. Sometimes it helps to have a little support with the hands, or if you feel comfortable with it, you can just lengthen your arm alongside your ear. Taking a few breaths here to just open up and elongate along the left side of your spine. And then coming upright, put your left hand behind you and lean into your left hand, lean into your left knee. You can roll the sole of the right foot to the floor and then just lengthen the right arm alongside the right ear. Take a breath or two here. And then we'll lower down. You can extend both legs long. And then from there, you'll just slowly start to lie down on your back. Hug your knees towards your chest. You can take a couple of breaths here just to rock a little bit from side to side. And each time you rock, you see if you can create a little more length through the lower back. As you exhale, just curl your nose up towards your knees. Take an inhale here. And as you exhale, release down into Shavasana. And we'll take a few moments here in Shavasana to allow the floor to do the work of supporting you. See if you can really let yourself sink into that feeling of support with each exhalation. And just, again, allowing the spine to make contact with the floor and just sensing how that contact is for you now. Please feel free to spend a little longer in Shavasana if you'd like to. If you feel like you'd like to come out of it, you can just lengthen your arms alongside your ears, give yourself a big good morning stretch, and then bend your knees. And slowly roll over towards one side. And then you can bring yourself up to sit. But as I said, please, if you'd like to stay longer in Shavasana, if you want to spend a little bit more time relaxing, I would always encourage you to spend as much time as you can so that you can really fully relax after your practice. But in any case, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.